Good day again, Harry Potter fans. Welcome back to our page. We are continuing on with Backward with Purpose, Part 1, Always and Always, by Dead Woodpecker. We are on Chapter 8, The D.A. Revisited.
Chapter 8, The D.A. Revisited. Chapter text. Dear Tom, I'm so alone here at Hogwarts. No one understands how hard it is to be the last of so many, and I don't think I can compete. Bill was head boy, Charlie was prefect, Percy's on his way to being head boy, and the twins aren't afraid of anything, and will play pranks on anyone. And Ron, he's best friends with the Harry Potter. They saved the Philosopher's Stone from He Who Must Not Be Named last year. I'm the only girl, and I don't think I'm good enough. You heard a voice? Hermione said, confused. Coming from the walls? Yes, Harry whispered. They were in the library together, finishing up the essays Professor McGonagall had assigned. Ron reckons I didn't hear anything, but I know I did. Where is Ron, anyway? She asked. Detention, Harry said dismissively. Listen, it was really creepy. It said kill, tear, kill in this odd voice. I think I know what it was then, Hermione said. Harry thought for a hopeful moment that she had figured out that a basilisk was crawling through the walls waiting to kill a muggle-born with a single look. But her expression was far too smug. What? Harry asked warily. Peeves, she answered. You know how he likes to trick students. I'll bet he'd think it was a laugh. It wasn't Peeves, said Harry. We'd just seen Peeves writing naughty words on the blackboard in an empty classroom. Another ghost, then, Hermione said. Her quill quivered while she wrote speedily. Harry let her work in silence and stared around the library. For the first time in a while, he let himself remember the Hogwarts that was. Hannah Abbott sat with Ernie Macmillan and several other second-year Hufflepuffs. She looked very young with her short blonde hair done up in pigtails. Harry wondered vaguely if he ought to be pushing her and Neville together, but decided that he had come back in time to defeat Voldemort without such a dreadful cost, and not to play matchmaker. It had been a shock when Neville had announced that he was marrying Hannah. None of them had even known they were dating. But after the members of Dumbledore's army, who had spent months of their last year hiding out in the Room of Requirement, had been liberated, several of them had taken up residence in the home Hannah had shared with her dead mother. Neville had eventually moved from a spare bedroom into Hannah's room, and they'd been married even before Ron and Hermione had. After watching the two of them at their wedding, Harry had been surprised that no one had seen it before. It was a small wedding in a backyard protected by the Fidelius charm. Hannah's gentle face was aglow with happiness and streaked with tears as she stood before Neville and promised to love and cherish him. Neville beamed proudly. Harry was relieved to see that the scars inflicted by the Carrows were fading. Harry stood and watched them. When Neville had asked him and Ron to stand up for them, Harry had been unsure. Not because he thought that they shouldn't get married. After spending time with them together, it had been plain to see that they loved each other very much. But he'd worried that his presence and status as undesirable number one would cause undue danger. But, as Ginny had rightfully pointed out, the Death Eaters could not penetrate the secret, not with Neville as secret keeper. Thinking of Ginny, he turned to look at her, winking. She smiled up at him from where she sat with her mother and Hermione. All three had tears streaming down their faces. Girls and weddings, he thought, shaking his head. But Harry could not pretend that his throat wasn't a little tight. Until the day I die. What are you smiling about? Hermione asked suspiciously. You've been staring at those Hufflepuffs. I'm not, said Harry. I wasn't smiling. I was thinking about the bloody voice I heard in the walls. Was it saying something funny this time? Because you were definitely smiling, said Hermione. You can't be too worried about it. Ginny believes me, he said stoutly. Where is Ginny, anyway? Hermione asked. I think she and Luna wanted to go to the Quidditch match, said Harry. He could not help glancing forlornly in the direction of the Quidditch pitch. It wasn't Gryffindor playing, but Slytherin against Ravenclaw. Still, though, he wished he could fly again and leave his worries behind him as he soared through the clouds. Hermione clicked her tongue. When Harry looked at her questioningly, Hermione grimaced and said, Luna is just so odd. She calls Ginny Guinevere and makes up all sorts of non-existent animals. I think her father is the editor of The Quibbler. That's a rubbish magazine, you know? The more bizarre and impossible it is, the more it gets attention. I tried reading one of the issues Luna lent me, but I couldn't even get through one article. I like Luna, said Harry. He thought Hermione was being a bit unfair. Ever since Ron had introduced them at the feast over a month ago, he'd noticed that Hermione was a bit sharp with her. Luna, ever serene, did not seem to notice. But Harry remembered Hermione's broken promises to Luna as she bled out at Shell Cottage. "You can't die, Luna," she whispered, her voice still hoarse from screaming. "We've got to go hunting Crumplehorn Snorkax. I've been doing some research, and I'm pretty sure we can find them in Finland. Between the two of us, we'll find them. We will. But we can't if you die." "You don't believe in them," Luna said. Her voice was fading away, and so was she. Still, she smiled that familiar, dreamy smile. "Yes, I do," Hermione sobbed. "I really, really do. I promise. We're going, just as soon as you get better." "Now you look worried," Hermione said. "Honestly, Harry, if this is really bothering you, maybe you should go see Madame Pomfrey." "Nah," Harry shrugged. He figured he'd given enough of a try. Maybe once the Chamber of Secrets was opened again, she'd figure it out straight away. He was about to bend his head again to the essay when he felt heat coming from his pocket, vibrating against his leg. "Ginny, listen, we've done enough on this thing for the day. Let's go back to the common room and see if anyone knows who won the match." Filled with a nervous sort of energy, he hopped from foot to foot while Hermione reluctantly put her books away. "Ginny is writing in the diary right now," he thought. He needed to at least be in the common room, like he was last time. She'd come down the stairs like a sleepwalker. She hadn't noticed him or Ron, and Harry'd had to fight the urge to knock her over. But instead, he just sat there, letting her walk alone into the chamber. "What has gotten into you today?" Hermione asked, once they'd left the library. "You've been acting strange." First the voice, then the weird smile. "I just want to know who won the match," Harry lied. "I reckon it's over." Hermione did not push it, for which he was grateful. Instead, she chattered, and he pretended to pay attention to her. "Why is she walking so slowly?" "Oh, damn," he heard from behind him. He was up almost an entire flight of stairs, and her heavy book bag was torn. He hadn't even noticed when she'd stopped. "All my quills broke." All Harry wanted to do at the moment was to march straight up to Gryffindor Tower and make sure that Ginny was all right. He didn't think she'd be possessed. Not today. But until he felt the heat recede, he didn't know for sure. Sighing, he turned around. He ought to at least help Hermione. Maybe that would make her move faster. There was no warning at all. He felt a punch to his back that felt like it might have broken his spine. He had no time to even try to catch himself as he tumbled down the staircase. He was trying to focus on breathing through the pain like fire in his back. He could hear Hermione screaming like she had at Malfoy Manor. He wanted to tell her to stop. "Damn it, Dobby," was his last thought before he heard a crack, and a violent sun exploded behind his eyes, leaving nothing but darkness. HP. Dear Tom, Harry Potter is so brave. He was so dreadfully hurt in an attack, but he's still alive and still fighting. Ron reckons that he'll be all right, but I've seen him in the hospital wing, and he looks like he's almost dead. But that can't be. He's the boy who lived. He defeated you-know-who when he was only a baby. I think my heart would break if he died, even though he doesn't seem to know that I exist. HP. The first thing Harry felt upon waking was dreadful thirst. He felt as though his mouth had been stuffed with cotton that had been sun-dried in the Sahara Desert. He wanted to lick his lips, but his tongue was too swollen to move. Water, he thought desperately. Then he tried to say it, but it came out like a croak. "Arthur's awake." Luna's voice. Hermione screamed, and someone dropped something heavy. It clattered when it fell, and Harry desperately hoped that it was not a bedpan. "Sorry," said Neville. "Hermione scared me." "He doesn't look awake," said Ron. Harry blinked. "Ah," he said, when he tried to say, "Get me water." Someone mercifully understood him and shoved a straw in his mouth. Upon feeling the cool water slide down his throat, Harry immediately began to feel better. "Thanks," he murmured. "Always," Ginny whispered, so no one else could hear. "How long?" he asked. "Over 2 weeks, Harry," Neville said. Madame Pomfrey said that if you didn't wake up soon, you'd have to go to St. Mungo's. Hermione started sobbing. Don't, he told her. I thought you were dead, she cried into her hands. I did, I really did. And all I could do was just stand there. Cece couldn't think of anything to do. He looked in her direction, but all he could see was a blur of brown that might be her bushy hair. Glasses, he said. Ginny gently put them on his face. Hermione, you couldn't have done anything. Yes, I could. I know that cushioning charm. Professor Flitwick mentioned it in class last month, and I practiced it, but I didn't even think of it. Hermione, Ron said soothingly. We talked about this, remember? It isn't your fault. You know it isn't. You agreed that it wasn't. What happened, Harry? Neville asked. Over the top of Hermione's head, Ron mouthed Dobby, and Harry gave a quick nod. I don't know, he said. I felt like someone punched me in the back. Whoever was cracked your spine, Luna said helpfully. You broke lots of bones. And then I fell. I think I hit my head. Harry finished. My spine was cracked. You cracked your spine, broke your arm, and fractured your skull. Ginny's voice shook. You're lucky Hermione got a teacher as quickly as she did. Thanks, Hermione, he said. Harry, Neville said in a hushed voice. We reckon that your attack had something to do with that voice you heard. And if I just listened to you, Hermione hiccuped. Maybe it wouldn't have happened. Hermione, Harry said firmly, despite the one giant ache that was his head. It wasn't your fault. Tell me about this theory of yours. She did shakily. Harry learned that while he'd been sleeping, his friends had frantically tried to figure out what had happened and who had been behind the attack. And they were sure it was an attack, because Hermione had seen the flash of light, and Madame Pomfrey had confirmed it. The fall had not cracked his spine. The stunning spell, or something similar, that Dobby had used had done that. Ron and Ginny had apparently thrown themselves at the mystery with as much vigor as Hermione and Neville. Luna appeared to be only vaguely interested. The theories as to who had been behind the attack were many and varied. Neville, voice shaking, suggested who wanted revenge for his foiled plans. Luna suggested a rogue Rickicloyer, much to Hermione's annoyance. Hermione herself thought that it had been someone under an invisibility cloak because she hadn't seen anyone and no one could apparate or disapparate inside Hogwarts. Harry suspected that Ron and Ginny had figured out the same thing he had. Dobby, unable to curse his broom, had tried a more direct approach. It was not until Madame Pomfrey, returning from an errand, realized that Harry was awake and kicked his friends out of the hospital wing that the speculation ended. You need to be more careful, she admonished him. I will, Harry lied. He spent the next few days slowly recovering. As his injuries healed, his boredom grew. He took to tormenting himself with his worries to alleviate it. Last time, all I had was a broken arm, and it wouldn't have been a big deal, but Lockhart tried to heal it, he told himself again and again. But this time, I got hurt a lot worse. What if everything we try to change is going to turn out like this? He asked Ginny and Ron that one night when they'd snuck out of the tower using his invisibility cloak. That's just Dobby, Ron said. He's a nutter. The whole reason why we came back was to change things, Ginny pointed out. Stop thinking about it for now. Halloween is coming up. Harry was surprised to realize that Halloween was less than a week away. Instead of focusing all his energy on worrying about things that may or may not happen, he decided to focus it on getting out of there before the Chamber of Secrets was opened. Ginny needed him to be alert, not brooding over the choices that they had made long ago. He did spare a moment to laugh at himself. When Dumbledore had first suggested the Tears of Merlin, he'd thought that they could change everything. He'd planned to destroy the diary as soon as it fell into their hands, to free Sirius the day they got back, and to prevent everything from happening as it had. But as soon as he had voiced these thoughts, jubilant though they were, the other Dumbledore had wisely pointed out that he was being a fool. Not that he'd said it in so many words, but his reasonable tone had made Harry feel all the more stupid. They couldn't change too much, not if they wanted to keep the upper hand. The sword was of vast importance, and so too was ensuring that it was Wormtail that took the steps needed for Voldemort's resurrection. The devil they knew was better than the devil they didn't. Dear Tom, Harry is all right. He's been released from the hospital wing and everything. Even though Madame Pomfrey said that he might have to move to St. Mungo's, he woke up, We were all very happy. And I'm happy. Except Tom, there have been attacks against the school. A cat was hurt, and I woke up the next day with blood on my robes. I think it might have been me. I don't remember going down to the Halloween feast, and everything is a complete blank. I don't know what to think, Tom. I'm scared. Harry held his wand loosely at his side and stared at Draco Malfoy. The tension in Harry's belly did not come from facing Malfoy in a duel. Harry, with his added knowledge of spells and lots of practice, did not think that Malfoy really stood a chance. He tried not to let that thought make him feel smug, but still, the tension came from the fact that he was about to reveal himself as a Parselmouth to the entire school. He could almost hear them accusing him of being the heir of Slytherin. The sneaky git is going to do it, Harry thought. He'd made Draco angry by dodging all his spells and flooring him with Rictum Sempra. Harry didn't look at the crowd, but he knew that the loud laughter came from Ron. I wouldn't smile, Potter, Malfoy snapped. Harry deliberately yawned. What are you going to do, Malfoy? Try to hit me with a spell? You'll have to work on your aim. The Gryffindors laughed. Remember, boys, Lockhart said. Harry repressed the urge to attack him. Lockhart grated on his nerves. Disarm only this time. Harry bowed, not taking his eyes off Malfoy for even a second. Serpensortia. Harry grimaced slightly. He'd been hoping that things would happen a bit differently, although it had been a small hope. Malfoy had never been anything but predictable. He sighed. Here we go. Stop, Harry commanded. The snake, which had been blinking in confusion, did so. It lay placidly, staring at Harry. Harry was struck with an idea. In for a Canute, in for a Galleon. If everyone was going to think he was the heir of Slytherin, he might as well have some fun with Malfoy. Go back to the one who summoned you, he said. Then added, don't attack him. Don't bite him. Just scare him a little. And then he watched as the copperhead slithered back to Malfoy, entwined around his suddenly shaking legs, and licked its forked tongue. Malfoy screamed and stumbled backward. The entire hall was in silence. All were watching, riveted, as the snake followed. It appeared to be enjoying itself. Snape, looking shaken, finally vanished it. Malfoy ran back to Crabbe and Goyle, all dignity apparently forgotten. The whispers broke out immediately. Harry shrugged them off and turned to his friends. Neville was pale with shock, as was Hermione. Luna was staring at something else in the room entirely. Harry was not even sure that she'd noticed that he'd spoken Parseltongue. Ginny and Ron, however, were trying so hard not to laugh that they looked as though they had gas. They converged on him. Even Luna wandered over so that she stood near him, and, surrounding him, marched out of the hall. You're a Parselmouth, Hermione whispered once they'd reached the Gryffindor common room. Luna had followed them through the portrait hole despite the fact that she was a Ravenclaw. You can talk to snakes, Neville said in a shocked voice. Well, yeah, Harry said. I set a snake on my cousin Dudley once. Ron laughed. I'll bet he liked that. It isn't funny, Ron, Hermione said loudly. Now the whole school is going to think he's the heir of Slytherin. Everyone knows that Slytherin could talk to snakes too, Neville said. Harry isn't the heir of Slytherin, though, Ginny pointed out. Besides, Ron said comfortably, the snake didn't go after any Muggleborns or anything like that. It went after Malfoy, the biggest ponce and pure blood there is. I didn't set it after Malfoy, Harry lied. I just told it to go back to the one who summoned it. That's what you said to it, Neville said. It looked like you were telling it to attack Malfoy. But it didn't attack Malfoy. It just went up to him and didn't do anything even when Malfoy kicked it, said Ginny. It doesn't really matter what it did or didn't do, Hermione said stubbornly. Everyone knows that the heir of Slytherin is the only one who can open the Chamber of Secrets. Harry very carefully did not look at Ginny. He could only imagine how she felt. It had begun again, just as they had intended. On Halloween night, Mrs. Norris had been petrified, and the warning had been painted on the wall. He'd sat in the common room, waiting for her to return. He wished that he could have followed her under the invisibility cloak to make sure that he was with her every step of the way. But Dumbledore had put his foot down. It was an unnecessary risk, he'd argued, and Harry had reluctantly agreed. So he'd been there when she'd left, and he'd been waiting for her when she came back. Who do you think it is? Neville asked. He lowered his voice, despite the fact that they were quite alone. Do you think it might be Malfoy? Nah. Ron shook his head. That kid hasn't got the brains. I think Professor McGonagall's the heir of Slytherin, said Luna. Only because she's the least likely person it could be, Hermione said waspishly. The only people we're sure it isn't are us, the professors, and Malfoy. I agree with Ron, she said stubbornly when Neville opened his mouth. I'm sure it isn't Malfoy. I suppose it's one of the older students. It could be you-know-who, Luna said vaguely. Harry looked at her, startled. Had Ginny told her? She has a point, Hermione said begrudgingly. You know who might be possessing another teacher. Or a student. If that's the case, it could be anyone, Ron said. Harry saw his eyes flicker to Ginny, but he didn't think anyone else noticed. We've got to figure out who it is, Hermione said urgently. Otherwise people are going to suspect Harry, and maybe whatever petrified Mrs. Norris will attack a student next time. Harry looked at her. Then he turned away, wondering what might change because of the words that would come out of his mouth in a few moments. It can only be for the better, he told himself. I think we ought to keep working on this, he said. But, Hermione, do you know of any good spells? She looked confused. What do you mean? He gestured toward the door. Spells that will work in duels. Like that body bind curse, or whatever. Well, she said slowly, I think I know a few. But why? Harry shrugged. Then, not wanting to downplay the importance, he said seriously, I think we should practice them. Especially if it is really you-know-who again. That's a good idea, Harry, Ron said. His eyes gleamed. He too had wanted to begin Dumbledore's army again, earlier than last time. Ginny was grinning, and Luna, beside her, looked interested. You mean we should duel each other? Hermione asked, perplexed. But won't we be doing that at the dueling club? Ron snorted. With that Ponce? He's got mothballs where most of us keep our brains. We could, I don't know, find useful spells in books, Ginny said, and learn them until we've got them down. I'm useless with spells, Neville said hopelessly. No, you aren't. Ron, Harry, and Ginny said so loudly that Neville shrunk back. I'm sure you'll be just fine, Ginny said in a quieter voice. But Hermione still looked so confused that Harry wondered if he had made a mistake in bringing it up. She might not be ready. Listen, Hermione, Ron said forcefully. Think, what if Luna's right? What if you-know-who is behind all this stuff? We got to do something. Lockhart certainly isn't teaching us anything useful. Don't look at me like that. You know he isn't. We got to learn how to protect ourselves. Harry nearly applauded. Exactly what I was thinking, mate. I suppose there are books in the library that have really advanced spells that we won't learn until at least our 4th year, Hermione said after a long moment. I can make a list, and we could try to learn them. Brilliant, Ginny beamed. I'll help. There's no guarantee we'll actually be able to learn them, though, Hermione said, still doubtful. But I do think Ron's right. We've got to try, just in case. What of you, Neville? Harry asked. I still don't think I'll be any good, but I'll try. I think you might surprise yourself, Harry said. Harry felt so good at restarting Dumbledore's army, albeit with far fewer members, that he found himself almost impervious to the gossip that surrounded him and followed him wherever he went. Even though Harry was dead certain that people were talking about him, he did not let it bother him. Some of it, he knew, was the result of being a man grown, in mind if not in body. But a lot of it was the fact that despite Hermione's initial misgivings, she had thrown herself into the task of finding appropriate spells with the same fervor she did try to find a clue about who was opening the chamber. Ron and Ginny were, if anything, even happier than he was. Excellent, mate, Ron said, punching the air. I think it's brilliant, and wonderful of Luna to give us such a nice opening. Ginny crowed. She sat on the floor, leaning against Harry's legs. If we can keep it going, they'll be more prepared for what's to come. Speaking of Luna, Harry grinned. Are you certain you didn't tell her? Of course not, Ginny said immediately. She doesn't know about the basilisk or the diary, or Dumbledore's army. All she really knows is that we're from the future. Who knows what Luna knows? Ron said wisely. I wish you would stop calling me Arthur, Harry said. I wish you would stop calling Ron Lancelot, Ginny said wryly. That's just disgusting. Things are going well, Ron observed. We've started the DA again. We've done well with keeping the students away from the basilisk. and Christmas is almost here. Yes, Ginny agreed. Brilliant idea with the coins, Harry. I know I've said that before, but I don't think I could bear it if any of the students got hurt. It's a huge weight off my mind. Agreed, Harry said, rubbing her shoulders. Although spending the evening with Colin after the Gryffindor match was a bit weird. I'd forgotten how much he practically worships me at this stage. You didn't really need to, Ginny said. The only reason why he was out so late last time was because he was trying to visit you in the hospital wing. Harry shrugged. I just wanted to be safe. He was decent company, I guess. His constant questions kept me from brooding while you were gone. Harry supposed it was true. He'd cornered Colin a few weeks previously and had asked if he'd wanted to play Exploding Snap. Colin, quivering with excitement, had stammered out an agreement. And if we're right, Ginny said, we won't even need to do anything about Justin Finch-Fletchley, Hermione, or Penelope Clearwater. True, Harry said. I am so ready for Christmas, he leaned his head back. Me too, Ron grinned. More than ready. It'll be the highlight of my year, Harry said. Since setting the snake on Malfoy already happened. You saw him, right? I thought he was going to wet his pants. I thought I was going to hurt something. It took that much effort not to laugh. Ginny laughed. The look on his face was priceless. The slimy git tries to set a poisonous snake on the school. It just serves him right, honestly. How's Hermione coming with the research? Ron asked. She's doing all right, Ginny said. She's found loads of useful spells, but she keeps saying that they're too complicated for people our age. I figure out a way around that, Harry said. I've ordered that set of books Remus and Sirius got me for Christmas during our 5th year. We'll all practice them over Christmas and show her that we can do it. Good idea, Harry, Ron said approvingly. She won't rest until she'll be able to do them too, just because we can. She's already trying to figure out where we're going to do this, Ginny said. She's already figured out that this should be kept a secret. But once she comes back from the holidays, we'll have discovered this place. Just think, Harry said. Once Christmas in the chamber are over with, we'll have an entire year without worrying about someone trying to kill us. HPHPHPHPHPHPHP. Harry Potter, A Parselmouth by Marigold Piper. Lucius Malfoy revealed yesterday that his son, Draco Malfoy, a second-year Slytherin, was attacked by a snake at the bidding of Harry Potter. This is only the most recent in a series of disturbing events that have taken place at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Eyewitness accounts claim that on Halloween night, a message appeared on one of the walls stating that the Chamber of Secrets has been opened once more. For a more detailed account of the first time it opened, at the hand of the now gamekeeper Rubeus Hagrid, turn to page 4. For a reminder of the myths and legends surrounding the chamber, also turn to page 4. While most were under the impression that this was a prank perpetrated by one of the students, as no one has been harmed, the caretaker at Hogwarts believes otherwise. Argus Filch, a squib, told me that his cat had been petrified, and he suspected that the Chamber of Secrets had, indeed, been opened. This news is even more disturbing in light of Harry Potter's abilities. Parseltongue is an ability long associated with dark wizards. Indeed, he who must not be named was a Parselmouth, as was Anton the Evil and Garth Silvertongue. An unusual affinity for snakes is a warning sign. It also must be mentioned that Potter has a long-standing friendship with Rubeus Hagrid. It is common knowledge that they spend at least one afternoon a week together. Potter and Hagrid are unusually close, said Lucius Malfoy. Hagrid isn't known for discretion. Potter can easily weasel anything out of him, including how to open the Chamber of Secrets. Albus Dumbledore, however, stated in a reply to my first owl, Harry Potter is not opening the Chamber of Secrets. He declined to say anything further, despite the fact that I felt duty-bound to ask if Potter has an alibi. In light of the events, the article written several years ago, strongly cautioning us not to trust Harry Potter automatically, must be reviewed. See page 2 for a reprinting. Remember, there is no proof whatsoever that Potter is opening the Chamber of Secrets. But I urge parents to caution their children over the school holidays to be very careful around him. There is still the terrible power that must be considered. It may be that the terrible power is his ability to speak Parseltongue, or it may be that he has somehow tamed the legendary monster of Salazar Slytherin. and that is what he might unleash upon the wizarding world.